Hey Brad, can you hear me?
I can. Hello, everybody.
I'm making sure my volume is up. It couldn't,
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
it does? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't working quite right earlier today, so. Shut that off. Just testing to make sure.
It is now 6 o'clock, so we will begin our pre-meeting study session for the Adrian City Commission, December 7th, 2020. So Greg, you may begin.
You want a roll call on
Oh,
that,
I
Mayor?
gotta do roll call. I knew it, caught it on myself. Sorry. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Halt,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
all commission members present.
Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, so just a few items for our pre-meeting discussion tonight. The first one I hope is pretty simple, but we wanted to make sure we didn't have any more missteps on this one. That's our upgrades, audio visual upgrades for city chambers. So what we did following the last meeting was we prepared an RFP. The intent would be to send this out for sealed bids. I just wanted to make sure, put that in front of you for discussion tonight, if there is any. Make sure that the scope is consistent with what you expect. And I will point out that we put a not to exceed number in there of $60,000, which is above the amount that's well above the amount that's been estimated in the past. But we figured whatever the work was going to be had to be in the range that would be south of that number. Didn't want anyone to waste their time if they weren't going to be able to bid in that range. The process would be similar to what we've already done with one of the prospective bidders, which is to give them access to chambers, let them go in there, evaluate what they feel needs to be done, and prepare a proposal for you that would be submitted within the required timeline. So open that up for any discussion that you might have on that point.
I guess I'll go first. I didn't have an issue with necessarily the legality or lack thereof when it comes to the bid process. My track record says I don't support no bid contracts. So if we were to put this out for bid, I'm comfortable with the number that you provided with us. And again, it's like one of those things where I just have a track record of liking things that are over the threshold of $10,000 we bid out. Unless it's an emergency or unless we go through the My Deal program, which Commissioner Watson stole from me. He asked Vince, like, why are we going through the bid process, through the state bidding My Deal program? So yeah, I'm good with it, with what you provided. Again, last meeting, my position was clearly stated. It wouldn't matter what it was or what vendor was going to provide the services rendered. I just have a core value of not supporting it, but I do like what you put in here, and I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
Can I say one thing that what I read in this packet was all sounded good to me. I just think that as a commission, we erred a couple meetings ago when Drake Lally came and talked to us. He gave a very good presentation, and we all nodded our head and basically gave Greg the green light to go ahead on this. And so I think we sent Greg some bad information, but we also made ourselves look bad too. because of the message that we sent. But we'll recover from this, and moving forward, I just think we need to look at it as a learning experience. I was very happy, with Drake's presentation that night, mostly because I know him and I know what would be involved in getting this project taken care of. And I just felt like we were going down the right road on a situation that I didn't think we had a lot of time with, which that timeline has changed. But again, I think that we should all just look at it as a learning experience and move forward with it. But what's in the packet this time looks real good to me.
Regarding the timeline, just an FYI, I think we would be able to, so moving past the end of the year, the ability to have virtual meetings is dependent upon there still being a declared state of emergency, which I believe as a city, we would be able to do, but the county, because there are a number of bodies in the county that can't declare a state of emergency, school districts, so on, that would still be required to have public meetings. It is the intent of the county Board of Commissioners, I believe, or at least as relayed to me by Marty Marshall, that they're going to declare a state of emergency to continue through April so that everyone will be able to avail themselves of the option to continue to have remote meetings if they choose. Any other discussion on the proposed bid document?
No.
Okay. So item number 2, equally simple, I hope, is for us to find a date for you to have a workshop regarding the capital budget. All the departments have submitted their requests to Nathan Owen. And as I understand, it's our custom to now have them make their pitch to you at a work session. There's about 3 or 4 that are the main departments who have capital requests. Not everybody is in the same boat in that regard. At staff meeting this morning, I asked if anybody had dates that would not work for them, and I didn't hear any such dates from department heads. So I think whatever you might come up with would work for us.
Are you thinking as a special meeting or just as a pre-meeting?
My understanding is in the past you've done it as a special meeting, but I would be fine doing it either way, whatever your desire is.
Refresh my memory. What I mean, I remember going through the book and the 5-year plans. But the output of this budget workshop is what? Like we decide what we're actually going to invest in?
That we would agree on capital budget items for this upcoming fiscal year. I don't think Nathan is on here. If he is, I'm gonna let him expound on his expectations, but he has not arrived yet, so I can't do that. As I understand it, it's a matter of sort of picking winners and losers amongst the proposed capital projects that the department heads are pitching for the upcoming fiscal year.
And maybe not completely picking and choosing, but asking questions about why. We did this with the fire truck and the ambulance. Those were talked about during capital budget meetings. And do we really need it this year, or can we put it off? And then my understanding was based on our feedback of that meeting, then the department heads would come back with a formal budget that we would agree on. Is that what you guys, right?
That's
Okay.
what I thought was the plan, yes.
Right. And it wasn't necessary, we weren't like voting on it or saying, yes, this is what we're going to do, but at least giving them some direction, like, hey, we really don't feel like we can do X, Y, and Z, but we'd like to do A, B, and C. and then they would be in charge of redoing the budget.
Yeah, it's more of a wish list for department heads, and then we
Right.
kind of pare it down. And then it's a 5-hour meeting, if anybody doesn't remember. It's usually a very long process. And then we go department by department, and then they give us their wish list, and then we kind of pare it down based on priorities. And then we give Greg direction to pare it down to get it back to us in a form as the 7 of us see fit. So Mary's absolutely right.
But Alan, wasn't that more of the 5-year wish list? I know we've had some meetings that were like really long, and all the department heads made their pitch. I guess I was taking that because this was just for 1 year, this would have to be as extensive as what you're referring to.
Yeah, I think it's just because we have so many departments, I think is the reason why more than anything. Like I remember Chief Massinger wanted, he talked about maybe adding like the fire inspector and then the fire inspector vehicle. We talked about that. So yeah, I mean, we go department by department. We don't go line by line like we do in our annual budget meeting, but we go, so it all depends on which department wants the most. And usually back when you and I first got on, we didn't have any money. So it was really a kind of a waste of time, really, because we didn't have any money back then to buy some of the things that they wanted. So it's always usually scheduled from 5 to 9, usually from my experience. But usually we get out of there earlier. So yeah, that's usually the base time when they schedule it department by department, and we go down the line. So, but yeah, it's not like the line by line where Matt goes and all of his different moving pieces and bang, 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 but it's more of a wish list from what I remember. So
Well, I could have sworn we've done that recently.
yeah, Commissioner, we do it every year. Yep.
I get that. Thank you. Whoa.
It's been a long year, Brad.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. Maybe.
I think it's because we're on Zoom, it just seems like it's not been a year, but really it's kind of flying by.
My recollection is we actually did it like in February and then returned and reviewed it a month later or 6 weeks later. I could be wrong.
Always in December, Commissioner.
Always in December? Okay.
Always in December, yep.
Yeah, capital budget in December, and then you get into your main budget workshop, your general fund workshop, and.
Right.
That's when we do like an expense budget?
Now, Greg can pare it down, and usually we talk about it again, but we don't have the special meeting in order for the actual capital budget meeting. We'll tell him to pare it down. He'll bring it back to us, and then we'll see what we prioritize as a collective group. Usually.
Okay, that's good for me. So somebody pick a date.
We'd like to pick a date
Next
for
month.
that meeting.
I was gonna say next Monday, possibly. What about that?
I've always loved odd meeting Mondays. I mean, because it's just easier but I'm also very flexible. My kids are old enough now that I can, plus I'm home, so it's not like I'm down in the chambers and having to leave them by themselves. So
I'm completely flexible right now this time of year, and especially with nothing going on with COVID. So it's up to whatever everybody else wants.
Monday the 14th works for me.
Works
Yep.
for me.
It's good with me.
For me.
You want to do it at
Like
6
the winner,
Can we get it started earlier than 7?
whatever you like.
Even like,
usually it's 5 to 9 usually, and then we usually get out there about 8
Commissioner
o'clock.
Helt knows how it's been the last 5 years, and he knows exactly like the dates and the times and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So let's listen to that guy.
Well, Lad and I being the senior members up here, this is our 6th one. So yeah.
yeah, I say 5 o'clock.
Uh-huh, I'm fine with that.
Good.
Perfect. Next
Deal.
Monday.
5 o'clock on the 14th.
Yep.
Be ready. Okay, so the next item was requested by our city attorney, who I see is on the Zoom call here, Zoom meeting. I'll turn it over to her regarding commission rules and procedures.
Good evening. A couple weeks ago on our commission, after our commission meeting, several commissioners reached out to me to ask if we had any rules in place that dealt with filibustering, as we've been experiencing that a few times over the past year or so, and whether or not there was a time limit on public comment when it comes to items that are actually on the agenda. So I had told everyone that I would review the commission rules and procedures. Those were put together a couple of years ago. I think Commissioner Dudas headed up the project. So they were last revised right before he left. And so I've gone through them, and your time limits are not included in your commission rules. Those were set by resolution. So that being said, it's up to the commission as to how you want those time limits to be, so long as you're consistent. Right now, you have a time limit for your public comment that is at the end of the meeting, but you do not have any time limits on public comment related to the individual items. If you feel that you want to look at a possible change for that, there's a couple of things that you would have the option of doing. You could set a time limit for the things that come with the agenda items, or having public comment after the agenda items is not a requirement. You only have to have public comment once in a meeting. But an alternative to that might be having it twice, once at the beginning of your meeting and having a 3-minute time limit on that, where people can speak on agenda items, agenda related items. So that if there is a resident who has a concern they want to bring to your attention about something that you possibly may vote on that evening, they could come up during that time period and say, I'd like to talk to you about agenda item number such and such, and they could give you their input on it. Then when the actual item comes up, the mayor would no longer have to announce a public comment time for each agenda item. Then you could have an additional public comment at the end where people could talk about anything that is related to the commission. So that's one way to do it. So it's totally up to you guys to hash it out. Let me know if you want to make any change to that or not, and then figure out what those options might be. With regard to filibustering, there's a section in your commission rules that is sections 5, well, Article 5, subsections 501 and 502. And those are the only sections, oh, I'm sorry, and 503 and 504. None of this addresses filibustering, but 502 addresses profanity, topicality, and personal remarks. It would be my suggestion, if you do want something to be in your commission rules with regard to filibustering, so that the mayor and I would then have something to enforce, that we could add a section in 502, which currently has A and B, and we would add a section C, and we would prohibit filibustering, and the language would say something to the effect of, it prohibits, filibustering is prohibited, and that would be any attempt to block or delay commission action by debating it at length, by offering numerous procedural motions, or by any other delaying or obstructive actions. That language is taken directly from the US Senate and their definition of what filibustering is. And so if we had language similar to that, then that would help with the situations that we have faced in the past and give us a solid ground to stand on with regard to your rules and procedures. And that's really all I have to offer you, other than there are a few typos in there that if we do decide to make any amendment, we'll correct the typos as well.
Wouldn't you have to put a time limit on that too? On the filibuster? I mean, because I would think you'd have to have a time limit.
What I've done in the past is, because you have a time limit of 3 minutes on your public comments, is I've enforced the 3 minutes. So even if that does begin happening, we just kind of sit it out for the 3 minutes before I will ask the mayor if she wants me to step in, and then I'll say something. But I guess that would, the answer to that question, Lad, would depend on if you have already placed a time limit on all public comments, then we wouldn't have to do one specifically to filibustering. So just depending on how you all choose to structure that, I guess.
One thing I've actually, I participate in a couple different meetings in the county where they're run that way, where but I'm just as a public attending, and they do that public comment at the beginning, like you're suggesting, you know, one of the ideas you suggested, and then they go through their whole agenda, and then they have the public comment again at the end. The only thing is, I've even had questions come up, like even after just hearing it read, or maybe there's an explanation sometimes that goes along with that agenda item. Sometimes we've asked like our city engineer to expound upon that, resolution, or we've asked our city administrator, or we've asked our city attorney. Sometimes that'll bring up other questions, and maybe that would be some public comment. I guess I just personally, from participating in those meetings, didn't really like having the public comment at the beginning, because I felt there wasn't much. But I mean, and that might be the case, which would be great. You know, I mean, maybe possibly we might think that's a great thing, but I just feel like it was hard when it's just attacking all of the agenda items, as opposed to like going through each agenda item. I personally, just my opinion, would like to have a time limit though on those each agenda items, and still having that public comment with each item. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm fine with whatever, you know, we all want to go with, but just from being in the public in a couple situations like that, I didn't like it at the beginning. Just my personal opinion.
I know that there were many times when we were still meeting in the chambers that people would show up and they were there for just one particular agenda item, and it was near the end of the agenda, so they would have to sit through the entire meeting, you know, before they could get up and speak their piece. So it might be nice from a public standpoint, but I agree, I would like to have some kind of time limit on each particular item. So either way we go, I think is some kind of an improvement. But you have to have a time limit.
I agree with you, Len, and also with the mayor, that I'm opposed to the thing at the beginning of the meeting. I mean, you talk about a 3-minute time limit for somebody who wants to talk about an upcoming resolution, but they might want to talk about 3 or 4 upcoming resolutions. You give them 3 minutes per topic. You know, I certainly don't like that, but I like the public comment after the introduction of each resolution, but I agree that it does need to be a limited time. You know, somewhere, I don't know whether 3 minutes is the right number or 5 minutes, somewhere in that range, 3 to 5 minutes. You know, I've talked to a number of people and they feel as though if you come to the meeting, if you're going to make public comment and you come to the meeting prepared, you can say a whole lot in 3 minutes. So there's no reason to have it go on and on and on like we've been letting it do in the past.
How the city used to do it is exactly what the mayor spoke about a little bit ago. The city, you would have, after the vouchers are paid, the minutes, there'd be public comment. And then they'd make a public comment on the different agenda items they want to attack, and then they have it at the end. Now, since we've adopted the rules and procedures, I feel like our citizens are way more prepared. They're coming and they know exactly what they want to say. So I think that was a positive. I think that, again, if you put a time limit on each resolution item, I think that's also going to make folks, be more prepared instead of just coming and just, ranting or saying anything. So how it used to be is that we would have public comment before the meeting, and then you have it at the end. So in case we didn't vote the way the citizen wants, and they can tell us, how they feel about that, essentially. So I'm good with both ways, but I think that putting some kind of restriction especially after some of the incidents we've had, I think is important, I think, so.
And the city of Tecumseh puts theirs at the beginning like that, by the way, Commissioner Halt, that's how they do theirs right now, currently.
Yeah, former Mayor Berryman changed that when he got on and then he switched it to every agenda item, so.
Okay, well, it sounds like I hear a lot of interest in just leaving the structure the way it is, but creating a time limit to apply to all public comment as opposed to only your public comment at the end. So we can, I'm sure, put together a resolution for your next meeting to address that, and maybe it can begin at the beginning of the year then. And then what about the filibustering and putting that into the city commissioner rules? What is your opinion on that?
Great, Tamara. So let's go back to first. So like Commissioner Strayer said, so are we going to allow people to talk before the agenda? Because say I come to the meeting and I want to talk about the 7th thing on the agenda, and we got a couple contentious items before that. So am I going to be able to talk before the meeting, and then I'm not asking you. I'm just asking you, is this the way we're structuring it? Because sometimes citizens, like Lad said, doesn't want to sit there for an hour, especially if there's something contentious going on. To just wait until they have their opportunity to speak about a certain agenda. They just want their voice to be heard, quote unquote. So is that what we're talking about, or?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I thought, go ahead, Commissioner Roberts, sorry.
We're not going to open up public comment before the meeting. It's going to be the exact same format that it is now, just after each resolution and then at the very end. The only change right now is that we're looking at adding a time limit to the public comment after each resolution. Currently, we do not have a time limit on that section of public comment.
Right, okay, yep, I'm good with that too.
And I am too. That's good. Now, the filibuster thing, I guess I would go, do we need it? Any attempt to block or delay? If we're putting a time limit on all public comment, isn't that going to alleviate any filibustering, right? Why do we need to do both things?
So I guess that's up to you guys, because yes, the time limit will definitely have an effect on it and will stop that, I would say, most of it. On the other hand, you do have the situations where people want to read a statute to you or want to read a legal opinion from elsewhere. They just want to read something because they want to get their 3 minutes. And then you have sometimes where they do this in groups. So you have 3 or 4 people teamed together. So one's going to read the first 3 minutes, and then someone's going to pick up where they left off and read the next 3 minutes, and it could go on indefinitely. So in that sense, it would be, I think Greg would agree that, like, in that sense, it's going to become filibustering because it's their attempt to delay or obstruct your action, in which case then that gives us a mechanism to step into those situations.
Okay.
And yes, it has happened. So we have been through that this year a few times. So
I'm not opposed to it. I just didn't know exactly if we needed it still, but so we would be able to use that section C or item C filibustering on multiple people if we needed to, even though each person only talked for 3 minutes.
yes, because they would be working together to create that delay. Those are the situations where you usually see when the mayor asks me to step in and I say something like, I need you to stay on topic.
Right.
And so they're just wanting to statistics or, like I said, a legal opinion or things like that. That would give us that provision to say, there's a rule against filibustering, please stay on topic, or we'll have to cut you off.
Alrighty. Sounds good.
All right, that was all I have on that. So that's it for that. We can have resolutions for you guys for that to review at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't have anything else on the set agenda. I do want to mention and apologize that we did not have the public hearings that we rescheduled from last time on this agenda. So hopefully that a message got out that we need to add those because they were noticed. I think Matt got those notices out for the 2 street SADs. We're not going to try to do the resolutions tonight, but if anybody's here for those public hearings, we have to entertain them during the regular meeting agenda. So just a heads up in that regard. Other than that, I have nothing else that I want to discuss at the pre-meeting. So turn it back to you, Mayor, for any other comment.
Does anybody else on the commission have anything they would like to discuss right now?
Yes, I've got one issue, Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner
It's a
Gauss.
question for Mr. Elliott. On our agenda and in our, I guess, wasn't really in the package, it was a separate, we have the CAFR report. And we got it on Thursday night and it's on the agenda with a resolution tonight to approve it. Is there a sense of urgency that we only got 4 days? It's 129 pages long of a whole lot of numbers. I'm just curious if that's something that really has to happen tonight.
I will say this. So I know Nathan wrapped it up as soon as he had all the information that he needed to do so, and that he got that basically from them on agenda day, which was last Tuesday. The deadline is by the end of the year, so that he has to file that with the state. So theoretically, we can wait and approve it.
I may be the only one that has that issue. So I just looked at it 129, I'm pretty good with numbers. And I just looked at it and said, this is gonna be a long weekend.
Yeah, now, the auditors will be, or one of the auditors will be there to walk you through it, of course, at a regular meeting tonight.
That's fine. I can live with
Order
that.
of business, but if you really felt strongly about waiting 2 weeks, you could do that. It kind of puts him a little bit behind the 8 ball because he has some other reports and such to prepare based on the approved CAFR before he can submit to the state.
No, I'm fine with that. I think the point being, and we've all talked about it in the past, we don't like to get things at the last minute. We don't like to see things on Thursday appear on Monday's agenda. So things that we can avoid, we should do that. I understand how this came about. I can live with that. I think everybody else is probably fine. So let's just go forward with the report tonight and the resolution, and that'll be good. But please keep in mind that, as we've talked so many times in the past, we don't like things coming in at the last minute.
No, that's well noted.
Anything else?
I suggested last week that we recognize one of our departments. Has there been any movement, or what can we do about that? You remember that?
Yes, about,
I
Okay.
do recall that. Yeah, it wasn't
I
clear.
don't know if that's something we should or could do. It just seemed like there was a lot going on.
And there definitely was, and there has been even more since then. You know, I mean, I guess I'm open to ideas of how you would like to do that, and would be happy to effectuate anything that you want to accomplish in that regard. You know, obviously a resolution is easy to do, but if you want to do something beyond that, I'd be interested to hear your ideas in that regard.
I hesitated to respond, Commissioner. Scotty Marvin, who's on the call tonight, several weeks, maybe a month ago, had done a GoFundMe to collect money to recognize our police and firefighters and our police officers. Scotty, can you speak to that effort as long as you're here? Perhaps not. But anyway, he had just done that recently. So they've had some recognition, but they haven't had recognition from the city commission. And that may be a whole different thing that we need to do. You know, so I'm certainly not opposed to doing something like that. If somebody's got an idea, or you, Commissioner, have an idea of you know what you're thinking, but that's fine. I also had another thought, completely off subject, and it's too late to do it now. Next year, we ought to do a commission Christmas tree at Comstock Park. I just think that would be a good thing for us to do as well.
The mayor has hers. I saw it.
Well, she did hers, but that's not ours.
So my thought really initially was to do a resolution and just to acknowledge that it's been a pretty rough time for them. I didn't have any other thought beyond that, but obviously I'd be open to any other suggestions.
I think it's fine.
So just because I know some of the firemen personally, I'm probably going to go in and cook dinner for them one of the times when it's post-COVID, but that's you know, that's not right now, and that's not really coming from a city commissioner. That's coming from a friend. So I don't know, I mean, a resolution, a proclamation, whatever that's called, just acknowledging that it's been pretty rough out there for them, and that we acknowledge what they've gone through, especially this year of all years.
I think a proclamation's fitting. I mean, resolutions are easy, but something that they can put up in there, they can be proud of, because they're gonna, I mean, it's one thing about city employees is that they know what we're doing. They know they follow us. And when they're busting their tails, I mean, any recognition from the city leaders, I think is good for morale. So Mary, I think you were spot on with that. But I think a proclamation, a plaque, something a little more, because it is tough out there. So I totally agree with what you're trying to do.
And I'm not real big on plaques and all of that, but the acknowledgement part is what I was looking for. And even if we just send them a couple of a dozen donuts or something, just saying, yeah.
International Firefighters Day is May 4th. And Fallen Firefighters Day is October 4th. And maybe we add a proclamation on those days or in those months, like, and recognize something particular that they've done, or some particular officers that have done something exceptional at those times. So that we are doing that annually to recognize their, you said it's been pretty rough on them right now, so they're exhibiting some exemplary behavior, which would be something that we could do at that time.
Good idea.
I like doing that, but I don't know that I want to wait 5-6 months to do something for them. So are we good with a proclamation? Is everyone good with
I am.
that?
Real
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, sure.
Right,
Definitely.
right, they're your employees, so this way, it's technically, I think, your job. I don't know how to say that.
That's my job. We'll prepare that and bring that back. Our new finance director still is not here yet, but I know that our old one would have been cringing at the thought of us buying donuts, because that was like
We got a line on donuts.
we don't have budget
confident that
for buying donuts,
the
but
commissioner can make
Well,
that.
it doesn't have to come out of city budget. That would be
Nope,
something.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that
Take up
we
the
could each
about
pitch
facilitating
personally
the donuts.
for something. So if
Yep.
if people were interested.
Absolutely.
I'm making them chocolate chip cookies in the next week or two, because I already told them that. So
There you go.
anything else? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on to public comment. Is there any public comment? And please state your name and address.
Mayor and Commissioners, Don Taylor, 475 Meadowbrook Drive. With regards to the discussion about the 3-minute limitation for discussion, public comment on resolutions, I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's a good idea to have everything in the beginning. People need to address the particular issue that is coming forth at that time. But I was a little bit concerned about a comment, and I may have misunderstood it, that if multiple people speak on the topic, it could be considered a filibuster. And let me remind you of one thing. We went through the whole marijuana discussion, and we had 10, 15, 20, 30 people take their 3 minutes to talk about that issue. We didn't think it was a filibuster then. I don't consider it a filibuster now. I think we need to give everybody their 3 minutes, let them speak, and thank you for letting me speak my mind.
Hello, Joaquin Ramos. I'd also like to make a comment. I largely echo what Don had to say. I think that we should give people their time. I don't really like the idea of a comment at the beginning of the meeting, because there's usually a lot of information that we're given, not until actually during the specific agenda item. So I think that we should maintain having that. I think 3 minutes might be a touch short for things that are specifically on topic, like on the agenda items. But just because I've seen a couple of times that people have been actually not would be called filibustering, but actually giving information and stuff that does run on, 30 seconds longer, another minute. And then I also don't think there needs to be language for the filibuster. If we're going to have a time limit to begin with, just give people their time. The most time that any one person could take up for any particular item would be the 3 minutes during the agenda and 3 minutes at the end. Just give them their time. Thank you.
Ken Tokars, 110 Locust. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My one couple things I want to bring to your attention is if you look at the organizational chart for the city of Adrian, it lists the people above everything else. And I think that kind of puts people a step below if you're going to limit them. The other thing I want to remind you is, the city, they've done some things here that have warranted some of these items. I mean, look at the thing with the homeless. That wasn't handled very well. And I think that it kind of takes it out of the people's hands if the city's not going to do their job correctly. It doesn't allow citizens to get up and voice their concerns. And I think by putting those constraints, I think that further limits citizens' input. Thank you.
Hearing no more public comment, may I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Gauss.
Help.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned and our regular commission meeting will begin at 7 o'clock.
Hey, someone's phone number or phone is calling, so you might want to mute yourselves.
I just muted everybody.
Mayor Heath.
Yes. Hi, jury.
See my puppy, Ian?
Yes.
Puppies make people happy in COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Say hi, Robin. Look at Lance Dog. Oh, look, you can go to the park with Lance Dog.
He's a big doggy.
Let me go get my dog then. This
You have
is,
a cute dog, Alan. Where's your dog? Oh, Alan's going to get his dog too.
You got
That'd be
1
three
minute.
dogs on Zoom. All right, Mary, where's your dog?
My dog is the
Okay.
one snoring in the background. So if
Yeah,
you,
there's
if you hear
Lance
anyone
Dog.
snoring, it's not my
Wait,
husband.
wait,
It's Tank. So I'm not moving him.
Yeah, Alan went, he walked away. There's Alan's dog.
Oh,
He looks just like Alan.
Yeah, he got him like last year.
I don't let mine come in the room because he'll drive us nuts and I'll hear him jingling the whole time.
Don Taylor, where's your dog? You have a dog?
My dog died this summer. I'm sorry.
We're sorry for you.
You can
Your
play
dog-
with my puppy whenever you want, Don.
Gotta love small town politics when this happens. I love it.
So
hey,
look,
here's Gus. Here's my other dog.
oh,
Yeah, he-
okay,
so
now
cute.
I've heard that owners and their dogs start looking alike, right? So
They're lucky dogs then, Gordon.
Alan's dog looks better than him.
Like mine. Run.
I was
Every-
trying to make sure
Okay.
that we've got
Put
Brad
him out
back
on
before I
Facebook.
start this meeting.
Okay, I was gonna say it's 7:00.
Yes.
Well, I got Brad, but I don't have video, so I was making sure unless I just got it. Did I just get it? Yep, there we go.
Yep.
All right. Okay. I call to order the Adrian City Commission meeting for December 7th, 2020. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Hou,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
all commission members present.
May I get a motion to approve the minutes of the November 16th, 2020 regular meeting of the Adrian City Commission?
Move to approve the minutes, Roberts.
Second, Castleberry.
I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Minutes approved by unanimous vote.
May I get a motion to approve the minutes of the November 16th, 2020 special meeting of the Adrian City Commission?
Move to approve the minutes. Roberts.
Support Strayer.
I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou.
Yes.
Minutes approved by unanimous vote.
May I get a motion to pay the vouchers as presented?
Move we pay the vouchers as presented. Helped.
Support Strayer.
I I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Vouchers approved by unanimous vote.
Under communications, C1 is from finance. It is going to be a presentation of the fiscal year 2019-20 comprehensive annual financial report. At this time, I'm going to turn that over to Auditor Brian Mosier from Clark Schaefer Hackett to present that comprehensive report.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I wish we could all be there in person, but this is what we've been dealing with here for the past year. So I'm going to present the report to you, and I believe I'm going to be able to share my screen. Yes. Okay, can you confirm that you can see the presentation?
Yes.
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 Okay, great. So I'm just going to go over the audit high level, talk about our reports that we issued, and then we'll also give some high level comments on the financial statements. So first of all, the purpose of our audit is to express an opinion on the financial statements. So that's both in accordance with regular auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. Also, since our audit is performed in conformance with government auditing standards, we're also required to report to you any material weaknesses in internal controls that we find, any significant deficiencies in internal controls, and also any material instances of non-compliance. Through our audit, we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. An unmodified opinion is also commonly referred to as a clean audit opinion. And what that means is that the financial statements based on our testing are presented in a format that's materially correct in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The result of the government auditing standards report is that we did not identify any material weaknesses in internal controls or any significant deficiencies in internal controls, nor did we identify any material instances of non-compliance. In past years, we've also issued a report in accordance with uniform guidance. This is required when you expend more than $750,000 in federal programs in a year. And the city of Adrian was just under that threshold for the year ended June 30th, 2020. So we did not perform a single audit this year, so there is no report in accordance with uniform guidance. The assumption is with all of the CARES Act money and different aid that you received at the beginning of this fiscal year, we will perform a single audit again next year on those federal awards. Some other important communications to the City Commission. There were no new accounting standards implemented this year, so there's no restatement of beginning balances for any new standards. There are no transactions recorded within the financial statements with lacked authoritative guidance, so nothing in any gray areas. Everything was very clear on how it should be reported. There are no material misstatements in the financial statements noted, which is important to you because that means that the trial balance as it was presented to us was materially correct. So the financials that you see throughout the year should have been materially correct as well. And we also had no disagreements or difficulties in dealing with management. This year was especially hard to do just about anything, and that includes audits. It was a difficult year to do financial statement audits, but our audit of the city wasn't impacted too much. We were out there in August and then later in the fall, and that was at a time where a lot of the virus was down. It wasn't such a problem, so we were able to be on site to conduct our audit. So there really wasn't much disruption to the audit caused by the coronavirus. Just some high level things to look at with the financial statements. These first few slides are on a full accrual basis. So that means that this includes everything within the city. So it includes capital assets, long-term debt, pension obligations, everything fully loaded into the financial statements. Looking at the asset side, cash and investments increased by almost $2.9 million. And a lot of this had to do with governmental activities. So your general fund balance increased by 1.1 million. Your major street fund increased by 1.0 million, and your local street fund increased by $267,000 in fund balance. So a lot of that cash and investment increase was within your governmental funds. The receivables and other assets really fluctuated just based on timing differences from year to year. And then capital assets, that decrease is because your depreciation exceeded your additions in the current year. And depreciation was actually high enough to exceed the $1.9 million in additions in business type activities. The deferred outflows relates to the amortization of prior pension obligation changes, and we'll see that on the next slide. This slide looks at a change in liabilities and deferred inflows. Your payables decreased this year. Some of that was timing. A large amount of that was due to the Maple Avenue project, which had some larger liabilities at the end of fiscal year 2019. You'll see the long-term obligations decreased by almost $1.9 million. That was mainly due to the payment on the general obligation bonds, as well as the water and wastewater bonds. And then you can see the net pension liability. While it is the largest liability still on your balance sheet, the change to that net pension liability is it increased about $500,000 in fiscal year 2020. And again, that's just not straight. Nobody's going to show up knocking on your door asking for that payment in the next year. That's an actuarial long-term obligation, and it's not uncommon for governments to have large pension liabilities on their balance sheet. Slide 6 looks at the net pension at year end in government activities over the last 5 years. And you can see that stayed fairly stable. It was at a high in 2016 of 27.8 million. In 2020, it was down to 25.3 million. So overall, a pretty stable net position in governmental activities. The breakdown of that net position at year end, the net investment in capital assets was about $23.8 million. So that's, again, all the assets less liabilities that are tied up in your capital assets. And then there's a restricted balance of about $7.5 million. And your unrestricted balance is negative $6 million at the end of fiscal year 20. However, keep in mind that net pension liability is a large driver on that negative unrestricted amount. If you didn't have that pension liability that came on because of GASB 68, you would have a positive $11 million balance in unrestricted. So that really impacts your net position in governmental activities. Slide 8 looks at the net position at year end in business type activities, mainly, again, water, wastewater. And you can see in 2016 and 17, it was right around $42 million. And then there's been the steady increase in that position for business type activities up to $45.7 million at the end of fiscal year 20. The breakdown in net position at year end for business type activities, there's about $39.5 million that are tied up in capital assets, about $3.4 million that's restricted, mainly for debt service, and about $2.9 million that's unrestricted. But keep in mind that while it's an unrestricted net position, is to be used for those business type activities. Looking at revenues and expenses in governmental and business type activities, slide 10 looks at governmental activities. You can see there's not much fluctuation. There's about no more than a $3 million swing in revenue from 2017 to 2020. And that's been fairly stable from 2018, 19, and 20. It's been right around $16.5 million in revenue. There's been some fluctuation in expenses, and a lot of that fluctuation is from the changes in the pension is what's causing a large fluctuation in expenses. Looking at the statement of activities for business type activities, revenues have outpaced expenses for each of the last 4 years. So you've seen that increase in net pension in net position within business type activities. This year, your revenues were $10.1 million with expenses of $9.1 million. So about a $1 million increase in net position. These next few slides look at the breakdown in the funds. So as you can see in the general fund, your revenues have slightly outpaced expenditures for each of the last 5 years. So that's caused a gradual growth in the general fund balance. In 2020, well, I guess your revenues increased from about $9.4 million in 2016 to $12.2 million in 2020. And then your expenditures had a similar increase with a slight dip in 2020. And I think a lot of that is the impact of the pandemic. There were some reductions in expenditures during fiscal year 2020. Slide 13 looks at the general fund property tax revenue over the last 5 years. And while it looks like there's kind of was a big drop from 2016 to 17, the scale on this, it just went from 5.1 million to 4.8 million. And then it's been, right around that $5 million range for the last 5 years. So pretty steady source of income for the city. And as we talked about, the revenues outpacing expenditures by a little bit each of the last 5 years. You see that gradual growth in the general fund balance from $4.2 million in 2016 to $6.6 million at the end of 2020. The next slide kind of puts, $6.6 million fund balance. It puts that into perspective. In 2020, that $6.6 million represented about 54% of total general fund annual revenues. So what that means is you have about 6 months worth of reserves built up in the general fund, which is a pretty healthy general fund balance. GFOA would recommend that it doesn't go below 3 months and that it doesn't go above a year unless you're really saving up for something specific. So, all in all, you have a pretty good general fund balance, and it's been right around that 6 month threshold for the last 4 years. These next couple of slides look at the major enterprise funds. Slide 16 looks at operating income for major enterprise funds. You can see some swings in the water. It's been around $1 million in 2016, 18, and 19. It had a dip in 2017 to just $7,000 in operating income. And in 2020, it was $575,000. Wastewater was about that same amount in 2020. And it's had some more steady operating income over the last 5 years. Then this last slide looks at something that's maybe even, or is at least equally as important within the enterprise funds, and that's the operating cash flow. It's always important to have positive operating cash flow in your enterprise funds because that allows you to fund future capital investments as well as pay off debt. The wastewater fund with the orange bar at the top, it's had a pretty steady operating cash flow, $2.3 million in 2016, staying pretty steady, but dropping a little bit to $2.1 million in 2020. Water has been anywhere from $1.1 million up to $1.9 million in 2020. So if you think about what that's used for, so you had a positive $2.1 million in operating cash flow in wastewater. You then spent $2.3 million on capital improvements and paying off capital debt, and then $469,000 on investing activities. And then water, you use that $1.9 million to purchase capital assets and pay off capital debt of $1.3 million, and then spend $473,000 on new investments. And that's concludes my report on the audit. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Just to reemphasize, Brian, and it's on your first slide, there is no concern of any nature related to your financial audit of the city of Adrian, both on internal controls, but as well as our financial position. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
And I guess to clarify, so we don't issue an opinion on internal controls. So if you had an internal control audit, it would go a lot more in depth than what we do. We look at internal controls as part of our risk assessment process. And if we would discover any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, we report those, and we have none to report.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, thank you for the report and hitting the highlights for us. It's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on. May I have a motion to amend the agenda to add Special Order 1, a public hearing to hear and consider comments on the establishment of a special assessment district for improvements to Lau Avenue, SAD number 391, and to add to the agenda Special Order 2, a public hearing to hear and consider comments on the establishment of a special assessment district for improvements to Addison Street, SAD number 392.
So moved. Watson.
Support, Robert.
I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
The motion to add the 2 hearings to the agenda is approved by unanimous vote.
So moving on to Special Order 1. It is a public hearing to hear and consider comments on the establishment of a special assessment district for improvements to Lau Avenue, SAD number 391. At this time, I will now call the hearing open. Anyone that would like to make comments may do so. Hearing no comments, I now call the public hearing closed. Moving on to Special Order 2. It's a public hearing to hear and consider comments on the establishment of a special assessment district for improvements to Addison Street, SAD number 392. At this time, I now call the hearing open. Anyone that would like to make comments may do so at this time.
Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. As stated at the last SAD meeting, I'm not sure how many of these we're going to have. I'm concerned that you guys are charging our residents for something that the city is liable for. And specifically, if the city had water mains that were leaking in that area, that would have undermined the road and caused it to prematurely deteriorate. If you go down there, you'll see a lot of the curb and gutter. It's not cracked or anything. It's tilted. It's tilted back. It's tilted forward. So to me, that would be like a subgrade issue. And again, I think you're pushing it on these residents to pay for it when it's something that the city is responsible. Again, I'd like to remind you that I've contacted the city of Tecumseh, and when they do a road project, curb and gutter is back of curb to back of curb across the street. The resident is responsible for cutting the grass. He's responsible for the sidewalk and for the grass in front of his house. I think the city is not being fair with this, and I think that special assessment districts should not include curb and gutter for residents. I also think that the city is not equitable in the way that they create special assessment districts, specifically when it comes to the downtown area. You guys have done those roads 3 different times. You've done the curb and gutter, and you've never created a special assessment district there. Thank you.
Hearing no more comments, I now call the public hearing closed. Moving on to resolutions. R 20-210 is from Finance. It is a resolution to approve the fiscal year 2019-20 comprehensive annual financial report and authorization of year-end encumbrances and carry forwards, as well as designations of general fund unassigned fund balance. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move we adopt the resolution, help.
Support Gauss.
Are there any public comments?
Ken Tokars, 110 Locust. I just want to clarify Commissioner Watson's question. I believe he asked Mr. Mosier if this was an audit for internal controls. And I believe that his response was, no, it wasn't an audit of internal controls. It was just of the general finance. So based upon that, I think we had a couple months ago, we built a dog park and we landed up being 33% over budget. A lot of extra work was done without commission approval. Commission approved it after the work was done. So I think that in itself calls for an audit of internal controls. Digging down into the weeds, I would like to talk about the pension deficit and specifically on page 80. I did contact GRS just to let you know if anybody tries to contact GRS, someone from the state of Michigan is going to call you, tell you that they charge $350 an hour, and they're going to answer your questions. I don't think that the city's taking the pension deficit seriously. If you look at the pension deficit on an annual basis on page 81, you have benefit payments. So this year we paid out 4.6 million. Last year we paid out 4.4. The year prior 4.1. The year prior to that 3.9, and the year prior to that 3.8. That's the payment. Now our investment income on the 40 million that's in the account is this year we got $5 million. Last year it was a negative of $1.56 million. And the person who called me from the state, the way it was explained, it's more or less like an adjustable rate mortgage. And the report does not include one specific year. It includes an average of over 5 years. So over the average of 5 years, we lost about $3.5 million. Year prior to that, there was 5 million in revenue. Year prior to that, 4.1, and then there was another loss the year before. Right now, our pension deficit is at over $64 million, and we've got about $40 million in the account. So we're about a little bit $23.9 million. And I think some of the commissioners have told me that we're on this 20-year plan. And I feel that 20-year plan is like an adjustable rate mortgage in that right now we're not making any gains on this. We might get maybe $500,000 here or there each year, but I want to know what's going to happen at year 17, 18, and 19. Are we going to be straddling because right now, if you go at the current rate, we're at 23 million and we're not really going down any year, any year we're going up or we're staying steady. So that means that when year 18, 19, and 20 come around, what kind of a contribution is the city going to have? If you look at this year's contribution was $2.1 million. The year before it was 1.57. I mean, that could potentially be $6 million in the last 3 or 4 years. And I would hope that if Mr. Mosier's on this call, we would that he could start reporting on this in future CAFA reports, because it is something that we're going to be passing on to our children. And I don't think that we should be doing that to our kids. I think we should make Adrian a better place for them. The city has some potential land sales coming up in the near future, and I would realistically like to see $2 or $3 million put into the fund. I mean, right now, it's like gambling, you know, gambling with the stock market. And the problem is that if there's a bad year, that $23 million, and if you look at the report, that $23 million for a bad year could easily, with a 1% change, could go up to $30 million. And that is just going to straddle our kids. It's going to decrease our property values. And I think you guys really need to take this a little bit more serious. Thank you.
Hearing no more public comment, are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Gauss. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer.
Yes.
Resolution approved by unanimous vote.
Resolution R20-211 is from Parks and Engineering. It is a resolution to award a bid for HVAC ventilation enhancement at the Parks and Forestry Garage. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Watson?
Second, Castleberry.
Is there any public comment? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R20-212 is from Fire. It is a resolution to waive the competitive bid process and authorize the purchase of 24 self-contained breathing apparatus air tanks from Apollo Fire Equipment. Before I ask for a motion to adopt the resolution, I would like to ask for clarification on waiving this bid process from City Attorney Tamaris Hennigan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Because we previously discussed waiving bids, I understand that's why you'd like to give some clarification for the public. In this situation, the fire department has some equipment already, and the equipment that they have, it is required that the matching equipment be purchased from the same company in order for them to be under warranty and everything else. In addition to that, it's my understanding that these pieces of equipment are not made by very many places, and this is the only provider in the state of Michigan. Therefore, it's appropriate under the charter for the city administrator to make the determination that there'd be no benefit to the city to put this out for bid because there's not other places for them to look for it, and they need the matching equipment as well.
Thank you. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Roberts.
Support, Strayer.
Are there any public comments?
Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. While I support the purchase, I guess I look at the internal controls with this purchase. You know, it says on the write-up that these are 15 years old. And I guess for them to bring it at the last minute that it had to be put down as as a waiving the bid when we could have just went through the normal process. It doesn't make sense. I know a lot of organizations use Google calendars and Outlook calendars. And I think this goes for a lot of things that are put on the agenda last minute. I mean, you can enter something in a calendar and you could put a date on it and you could put a future date. In some calendars, they let you put a recurrence. So you could put a recurrence on there for that same event. And you could put that recurrence for maybe a couple months ahead of time or maybe 6 months in advance. And that way you wouldn't have to do these things last minute. Another thing that you can do is they have a feature nowadays and it allows you to share the calendar. So maybe like a purchasing department could share that calendar, and maybe the city commission would allow administration to start having meetings. And then maybe at those meetings on a monthly basis, one of the agenda items would be going over upcoming bid items and when that stuff has to get in. And, you know, if you started that process 6 months ahead of time, then basically at month 5, you could ask the person in charge of it, hey, where are you at with this? Oh, I haven't started it yet. Then at month 4, where are you at with this? And then, you know, maybe we'd look like we got our act together. Thank you.
Are there any commissioner comments? I know I have one. I would ask that our city attorney, would you explain and respond to that? What was just clarified to us?
Sure. I can definitely appreciate Mr. Tokar's thought process on purchasing, and I believe that probably Nathan Owen and Mr. Elliott follow a very similar process. In this particular situation, though, it's not a last minute purchase. It's that Apollo Fire Equipment is a sole provider of this type of equipment in the state of Michigan. The city tries very hard to do business with Michigan businesses, and that there are requirements for the current equipment that we have in our possession to be purchased. The accessories to that must be purchased from Apollo as well. So there would not be an opportunity to bid and then maintain the warranty on the equipment or be able to purchase from an in-state company.
I thought, and Mayor, may I?
Go ahead, Commissioner Roberts.
Yes, thank you, Tamaris. You explained that twice now very correctly, and I appreciate that. We sometimes have to do no bids for the benefit of the city and for other reasons. And we are not doing things last minute. We don't need to review calendars. Our department heads have been in positions for a long time. They know what their department needs and they know when they can bring those things to us. So although I appreciate residents trying to help us improve positions, I think we're doing just a fantastic job these days. So thank you, Chief Massengill, for bringing this up. And yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with it.
I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R20-213 is from the Utilities Department. It is a resolution to waive the competitive bid process and enter into a software as a service and spectrum lease agreement with Census. Before I ask for a motion to adopt the resolution, I'm going to ask once again for City Attorney Tamaris Hennigan to please explain why we are waiving this bid.
again, Mayor, this is a situation where there wouldn't be any benefit to the city in placing a bid because, or in asking for bids, because we are under contract with JCI, and this is part of the software that we need. It's covered, some of the warranty and everything is covered in our JCI contract. There's just no advantage. And so once again, it's appropriate for the city administrator to make that determination through the language of the charter.
May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
To adopt the resolution, Watson.
Support Strayer.
Are there any public comments?
Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. My concerns are specific with census and census as a product. I did a little bit of research on census, and it seems like there's a lot of problems with that equipment. It says some of their meters have caught on fire. It's pretty crazy when we're talking about water. It's saying that the gaskets on some of the meters were not waterproof. People were getting $1,000 and $1,500 bills. It just seemed like there were a lot of issues with a lot of cities. If you look up census, SENSUS, and you plug in litigation or lawsuits, you'll see several municipalities that have had problems with this equipment. And it's not like it's from 10 years ago. Some of these issues are 2 or 3 years ago. So it's current. And I guess I'm just not comfortable that this system is a reliable system. I also question how much work it's going to take on the part of the city once people get $1,000 or $1,500 bills. If you look up census and hacking, it can tell you how to override the system. What else? There was one more thing I wanted to say about the census system. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R20-214 is from the City Commission. It is a resolution to reappoint Bob Benke to the Adrian District Library Board. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Help.
Support Strayer.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R20-215 is from the City Commission. It is a resolution to reappoint Eric Gable to the Adrian District Library Board. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution, Gauss.
Support Strayer.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Gauss with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R20-216 is from the City Commission. It is a resolution to appoint Amory Ream to the Adrian District Library Board. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Strayer.
Support.
Go ahead, Mary.
Support Roberts.
Is there any public comment? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion. Oh, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to wait till all three of these were going on the agenda here. And it's just nice to always see the city residents who want to be positively involved in helping Adrian and not being a negative force. So I want to thank all three of them for stepping up and being a positive force in Adrian.
I have a motion from Commissioner Strayer with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
It is now time for public comment. Just to reiterate, there is a 3-minute time limit, and for the record, please state your name and address.
Jim Berryman, 676 Stonecrest.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
And I can see you. Hello, Mayor. Hi. I just wanted to take time within my 3 minutes, which does not give me time to thank all of the different businesses that have donated their time and expertise to make a lot of good things happen for the holiday season. It was a city-county Christmas tree, which was a collaboration between the city and the county. Comstock Christmas River Walk, which is really not only the city, but brings in people from around the county. And then tonight we added a nice greeting on the wall that used to be a common wall with King Christopher. That was added this evening. All of those things would not happen without the support of the mayor and the commission. Greg Elliott, Matt in your department with Eric Kelly and his crew, and Jason Lawrence and his crew. These things just wouldn't happen. You know, and in a year that I think more than ever, at least in my lifetime, we've needed to see some things that will bring a few smiles to individuals' faces. People in this community have come together and made that happen. They made that happen even in the middle of a pandemic. And just this evening, when I was driving home, saw family after family after family walking, enjoying themselves. Again, to the mayor, the commission, Greg, you and all of your departments, Jason, Eric, thank you for believing in this community that they can come together and even in these difficult times, do something that is very community minded, very supportive of the community, and brings a little bit of happiness at a time, I think, when we can all use it. My 3 minutes are probably up, Mayor, thank you very much. Greg, thank you very much. Commission, thank you. May this continue. I think that community spirit has always been there. Sometimes you just have to tap a few people on the shoulder and remind them that there are many good people out there that want good things happen. So thank you all very much. A pleasure. And I look forward for the rest of the month to be able to enjoy the things that you have all helped create. Thank you.
Hearing no more public comment, I'm going to move on. Are there any commissioner comments? Hearing no commissioner comments, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Adjourn.
Support, help.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned and we will begin the special meeting in 1 minute. I call to order the special meeting of the Adrian City Commission on December 7th, 2020. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Robin.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Halt,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Gauss.
You're muted, Commissioner Gauss.
Present. That was the answer we were looking for.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
all commission members present.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this meeting to an undeclared future date.
May I get a second on that motion?
Second, Roberts.
So we have a motion, sorry. So we have a motion to postpone this to a later date from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Motion to postpone meeting to a later date is approved by an all yes vote.
At this time, it is public comment. Just to reiterate, there is a 3-minute time limit, and for the record, please state your name and address. Are there any commissioner comments? Hearing none, may I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn the meeting, help.
Second, Castleberry.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Special meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.